नेटफ्लिक्स पर इन दिनों एक सीरीज दिखाई जा रही है जिसका नाम है द रोमांटिक्स। ये सीरीज जो है जाने माने फिल्मकार यश चोपड़ा को एक ट्रिब्यूट के तौर पर पेश की गई है और इसे बनाया है स्मृति मुंद्रा ने, जो इस वक्त मेरे साथ मौजूद हैं। उन्होंने इस सीरीज को लिखा भी है, डायरेक्ट भी किया है। बहुत बहुत स्वागत है एबीपी न्यूज में आपका।
हेलो, थैंक यू।
स्मृति, मैं जानना चाहूंगा, एक लेजेंड है, रहे हैं यश चोपड़ा, और उनका जो सिनेमा है, जिस तरह की रोमांटिक उन्होंने फिल्में बनाई, जिस तरह की एक्शन और ड्रामा से रिलेटेड उन्होंने फिल्में बनाई, उन्होंने एक गहरी छाप छोड़ी हिंदी सिनेमा में। आपके मन में यह ख्याल कैसे आया कि उन पर एक 4 पार्ट सीरीज बनाई जाए जो नेटफ्लिक्स पर इन दिनों दिखाई जा रही है और काफी चर्चा हो रही है इसकी? ये ख्याल कैसे आया आपको?
As a NRI who grew up in the West, um, for me, Hindi cinema was synonymous with Yash Chopra. I didn't even realize, all of the films that I loved when I was growing up were actually Yash Chopra films, and so much of the style that the world knows of Hindi film, popular Hindi film, was created by Yash Chopra. And so there are many different ways to tell the story of Hindi cinema, but I thought this would be a good place, to condense it and tell the story of Hindi cinema through his career.
Okay. आप लॉस एंजल्स में रहती हैं और वहां पर अमेरिका में हिंदी सिनेमा आप देखती थी। बहुत अनयूजुअल सी चीज है कि वहां अमेरिकन हिंदी फिल्में देखें। आप पहले से ही फैसिनेटेड थी हिंदी सिनेमा के प्रति, बचपन से ही बहुत फिल्में देखती थी?
Yeah, it's not so unusual actually. And NRIs watch a lot of Hindi films. I watched throughout growing up, watched Hindi films, and so did all of my cousins and my friends and family friends, because for so many of us, for a long time, this was our only connection, to our motherland, to our roots. Because especially in the 80s and 90s, there was not so easy to travel, to India. So we learned about our festivals and our culture and language, learning to speak Hindi and all of that through Hindi films. So it's big over there, and it's very important in a different way, for NRIs, because it was our main connection to India.
आपने शुरुआत में बताया कि जब आप फिल्में देखती थी तो उसमें से बहुत सारी फिल्में यश चोपड़ा की फिल्में हुआ करती थी और वो फिल्में देख देख कर आप बड़ी हुई हैं। कौन कौन सी फिल्में बहुत फेवरेट रही हैं यश चोपड़ा की, जिसने आपको बहुत इन्फ्लुएंस किया बतौर फिल्म मेकर?
Chandni, definitely. Chandni, when I first saw the film, I was a kid, and it left such an impact on me. It's the first film I think I watched start to finish,
Oh.
And the songs, and Sridevi, and, everything about that film really, I just, couldn't stop watching that film. And then later years, when I rediscovered Diwar, incredible film. It was a little before my time, but one of the best Hindi films, I think, that have come, from Hindi cinema. And then in later years, not Yash Chopra particularly, but DDLJ, was the first film that spoke to my generation, to my, upbringing as an NRI. So I felt very personally connected to that film.
तो आप यश चोपड़ा ब्रांड की जो फिल्में हैं वो बहुत शिद्दत से फॉलो करती रही हैं। मैं ये जानना चाहूँगा, द रोमांटिक्स का ख्याल जब आपको आया, आपने कैसे प्रोसीड किया? मतलब कैसे शेप अप हुआ ये प्रोजेक्ट? कब ये ख्याल आया और कैसे आपने अप्रोच किया यशराज फिल्म्स को कि इस पर एक 4 पार्ट सीरीज बनाई जाए? उसके बारे में कुछ बताइए।
I think once I had the idea to, make a docu-series on Hindi cinema through the perspective, through the lens of Yash Chopra, I knew I needed the support of Yashraj Films. Otherwise, I needed access to all of the films and also any behind-the-scenes makings, all of that. So I reached out to Yashraj Films. I approached them, and thankfully they agreed to let me proceed with the project. And then.
So was it so easy? Like you approached them and they agreed? Was it so easy? इतने आसानी से हो गया? या बहुत आपको समझाना पड़ा, बहुत डेलिब्रेशन हुए और उसके बाद?
I wrote a proposal, for them of my vision for the series, And at that point, I had made a film that was well regarded already, and I had been working both in India and in the West, for a while. So yeah, I think it was mainly just the proposal, initial proposal that showed the vision of the series that the studio responded to, and then they allowed me to
तो
continue.
कितना वक्त लगा आपको ये 4 पार्ट सीरीज बनाने में? और मेरा एक और सवाल ये था इसी से जुड़ा कि इसमें 35 बड़े पर्सनालिटी 35 पर्सनालिटीज हैव गिवन इंटरव्यू टू यू रिगार्डिंग दिस सीरीज. हाउ डिड यू मैनेज? कैसे आपने मैनेज किया कि शाहरुख खान, सलमान खान, आमिर खान, रणवीर सिंह से लेकर जो तमाम बड़े स्टार्स हैं, सलीम खान, ऋषि कपूर हमें दिखाई दे रहे हैं नीतू सिंह के साथ, तमाम जो बड़े स्टार्स हैं, कैसे मैनेज किया? इतना ये बहुत बड़ा फीट है एक इतने बड़े स्टार्स को एक ही सीरीज के लिए लाना और किसी विषय पर बात करवाना.
I think the getting so many people to participate was not as difficult as you may think, because there was so much respect and regard for Yash Chopra. And I think when we approached them and we said, we're making this docu-series on Yash Chopra, and we have the support, of Yash Raj Films, that, they have blessed this concept, then people were willing, and eager to speak with us, because there's so much love for Yash Chopra in the industry, and he's launched so many careers, and he's had such an influence on so many people that people were eager to speak, on his behalf.
Almost all the stars you have interviewed in the series, they have worked with Yash Chopra, and they have high regards for Yash Chopra ji. लेकिन मेरा सवाल ये है कि किसे इंटरव्यू करके सबसे ज्यादा मजा आया आपको? इसके बारे में बता.
Rishi Kapoor.
Rishi Kapoor,
Yeah,
sir.
yeah, yeah. He's so charming. And he had so much to share. He had so much history to share about his relationship with Yash Chopra, and he's so funny. He can tell you something that's about history, and that's about, that in somebody else's, perspective, it might sound very academic. It might sound, very clinical. But when Rishiji says it, it was just, funny and engaging, and it was really one of the best interviews I think we had.
So what was the most funniest thing he said to you off record, not on record? On record we know what all he said. Off record, what is the one thing he's told you and you'll cherish all your life?
It's not funny, but I think, when he spoke about doing Jab Tak Hai Jaan with Yash Chopra, and just, recognizing, I think somewhere in there, they both recognized that their days were coming to an end, their careers were coming to an end, I think, though didn't know we were going to lose either of them, in such so quickly, but I think there was, mortality sets in, and you start to recognize. And I think him talking about the experience of making that film and feeling so sentimental, every day on the sets, seeing Yash Chopra, and thinking back of all of those conversations, all of their history together, was very touching.
मैं ये भी जानना चाहूँगा कि एक बहुत बड़ी उपलब्धि सीरीज की ये भी है, आदित्य चोपड़ा जो यशराज स्टूडियो के सर्वे सर्वा हेड हॉन्को है, लेकिन कभी वो मीडिया के सामने नहीं आते, कभी वो बात नहीं करते, किसी इवेंट पे नहीं जाते हैं, चाहे उनका खुद का भी इवेंट हो, यशराज फिल्म्स का कोई सक्सेस पार्टी हो या कोई लॉन्च हो, कभी वो नज़र नहीं आते. तो ऐसा कहा जाने लगा कि यश चोपड़ा डजंट एग्जिस्ट, ओनली इनविजिबल काइंड ऑफ मैन. लेकिन इस सीरीज में हम देख सकते हैं, जो सेकंड पार्ट है इस सीरीज का, उसमें आदित्य चोपड़ा बहुत खुलकर बात कर रहे हैं. कैसे आपने मैनेज किया कि आप उन्हें इंटरव्यू कर पाए? कैसे आपने मनाया? क्या आपको बहुत उन्हें मनाना पड़ा, समझाना पड़ा? लाइक वाज इट टफ टास्क टू मेक हिम अंडरस्टैंड दैट ही शुड कम ऑन रिकॉर्ड एंड टॉक अबाउट हिज डैड?
Very tough task. That was the toughest part of this whole series, was finally convincing Aditya Chopra to agree. But I think what he recognized, over time, it took lots of time, but over time what he recognized is that, he is the closest, person to his father, not only father-son relationship, but also colleagues, and without his perspective, there's so much, about Yash Chopra that only he knows and only he could share, and also about his legacy, about the studio that he built, that only he could share. So I think without his interview, the series would be incomplete, and I don't think Aditya Chopra would want anything that was sort of the definitive look, at his father's impact to feel incomplete. So that's how he agreed.
So what was the conversation like? Like, how did you convince him? Can you just put some light on that? Like, what was the kind of conversation you are having regarding this?
So initially, I asked him if we can just film an interview for his personal archives. And I said, you don't have to give me permission to use it. Let's just film it. We're here filming it with everybody else. Let's just film an interview. And then he agreed to that. And then I just started editing that interview into the show, into the series. And then I showed it to him. And I said, look, now imagine all of this taken out. Who is going to share this type of perspective besides you? And then when he could see that, that's when he agreed.
So how was meeting Aditya Chopra and seeing him? Like, we don't get to see him. Like, we go to य-शहर studio for some coverage and we can't see him. Like, nobody's allowed to meet him. But how was the experience like meeting him, talking to him regarding everything? And the kind of man he is, can you put some light on that?
Sure. Honestly, I know that there's probably a lot of mythology around Aditya Chopra because he's so private. And the uninteresting truth is that he's actually, when you do meet him in person, he's a very normal, nice, jovial person. Maybe not jovial, but he's a very, very nice person. Has a lot of respect for the work that everybody does, that in the whole ecosystem of filmmaking. He works very, very hard, and he speaks very well. Now the world can see that, but that I got to see that early. How insightful he is. How much perspective he has. On the business. That was all apparent, and he's actually very easy to talk to. So
did Aditya Chopra tell you regarding the secret that why he's not media savvy and why doesn't he like to come in front of media or come in public? Did he tell you why? What's the reason about that?
He did, and this is in the docuseries as well. That I think for him, making films isn't about celebrity. It isn't about ego. It isn't about seeing his face and his name everywhere. He just loves making movies, and he wants the space, and the privacy to do that. And he also, from what he has told me, is that he wants always to be able to have enough anonymity that he could always go and sit with an audience and watch a movie, because that's who he makes films for, is the audience. He doesn't make it for himself. He doesn't make it for big stars. He doesn't make it for money. He makes it for an audience. And he always wanted the ability to go and sit with an audience and see how an audience reacts to any film that they see. And if everybody here knows who you are and you have your faces everywhere, then it's more difficult to do that. So that's why.
स्मृति, इस सीरीज के लिए आपने 35 लोगों का इंटरव्यू किया, 35 पीपल यू हैव इंटरव्यूड. आई वुड लाइक टू नो कि इनमें से कौन से वो स्टार्स हैं, अगर आप कभी फीचर फिल्म बनाएं तो कौन से वो स्टार्स हैं जिसके साथ आप काम करना चाहेंगे? इसमें शाहरुख खान, सलमान, आमिर, ऋतिक रोशन, रणवीर सिंह, अमिताभ बच्चन को भी इंटरव्यू किया. किसके साथ आप काम करना चाहेंगे और क्यों?
It's so difficult to choose.
No, suppose you are making your first movie, and whom you would like to cast.
Yeah. Well, of course, it would depend on the story, but I think I would love to work with. I'll tell you the reasons why, because it's difficult to narrow down and choose who. But I think Shah Rukh Khan is, of course, has to be on the top of anybody's list. He's so beloved, and he's also he's so dedicated, to the craft of filmmaking and acting, and I think he would be, I imagine that whether he's working with a big renowned filmmaker or a newcomer, that he would be as dedicated, and contribute to making that film better. So of course Shah Rukh Khan, would be a dream.
So Shah Rukh Khan is your first choice.
First choice has to be.
And what about others?
Others, I would say some, more unexpected or maybe like not so obvious answers would be, I think Ayushmann Khurrana is just an amazing actor and always doing interesting roles, and always willing to do very interesting roles. So as a filmmaker, that's very exciting, when you have an actor who's really willing to, push the envelope and challenge, and do interesting things. Same with Rani Mukherjee, I think she does really interesting roles, so I would love to work with her one day. Mr. Bachchan is just a legend and an icon. I might be too scared, to direct him. He's such a legend in our business that, but I would never pass up an opportunity to be able to work with him. And then of course, I think Kajol has so much charisma as an actor, and I would love to be able to work with her and channel that in some new kind of interesting role, because I think, she's actually very spunky and she's very, like she might take more risks, than she lets on, in her career, and I would love to work with her on something that maybe is a little different than she.
So are you already writing any script for making any movie? Like, would you like to share something about that?
Not yet, not yet, but making this series has definitely given me the bug, to want to do something, in fiction and, maybe even in the Hindi film industry. I don't know, we'll see, but first I have to make my Hindi better and then I can do it.
मैं अपने दर्शकों को ये भी बता दूं कि मैच मेकिंग जो नेटफ्लिक्स की बहुत ही पॉपुलर सीरीज है, उसकी क्रिएटर स्मृति मुंद्रा ही है और इसका सीजन 3 भी जल्द आने वाला है. स्मृति, इसके बारे में कुछ बताना चाहेंगे आप? बहुत ही पॉपुलर सीरीज रही है, बहुत लोगों ने देखा और तरह तरह की बातें हुई. आप क्या कुछ बताना चाहेंगे? सीजन 3 इसका है.
Yeah, season 3 will be here soon. I can't say when exactly, but soon. And I think the show, it continues to have what drew people to it in the first place. We haven't changed the formula in any major way, but there's new characters. There might be a Jodi or two, like just some actual people actually completing their journey of finding a life partner. Yeah, there's some interesting characters in season 3. New people, new faces.
With new faces.
Yeah.
Okay. One more thing I would like to ask. OTT की जो दुनिया है बहुत बड़ी है, तमाम OTT प्लेटफॉर्म्स हैं. What are the things you watch in any like when you open any OTT platform? What are your preferences? Have you recently seen any web series or film? Would you like to recommend to our audience कि वो series या film क्यों देखनी चाहिए और क्यों आपको पसंद आई?
Yeah. I think OTTs have done just it's like one of the amazing gifts is that you have access to so many classic films and shows, from previous times, and also there's constantly new things coming out. It's definitely difficult to keep up with the new things because I tend to always get excited and watch, the classic things, the old movies and things like that, and also things from all over the world. But in terms of things that I've been watching recently, season 2 of Delhi Crime I thought was excellent. There's lots of great Trial by Fire. Lots of these shows on Netflix I think are really they're really interesting. Sort of interesting narratives and interesting stories that I haven't seen much before. So those are some things. And then in terms of in the West, what have I watched recently? I watched Ginny and Georgia on Netflix. I really enjoyed that.
You only talk about Netflix because the romantics have released on Netflix. That's the reason.
I have to be loyal to Netflix. So, yeah.
So lastly, I would like to ask, आपको क्या कॉम्प्लीमेंट मिला ये सीरीज जब 14 फरवरी को रिलीज हुई और इसकी चर्चा हर जगह हो रही है? आदित्य चोपड़ा ने क्या कहा या जिनका भी इंटरव्यू आपने इस सीरीज के लिए कहा, किसी ने कॉम्प्लीमेंट दिया? हाउ इट हैज शेप्ड अप एंड द वे इट इज बीइंग टॉक्ड अबाउट नाउ?
I mean, I think broadly from an audience perspective, a lot of feedback is coming that the series is reminding people of how much they love movies, and that is really gratifying to me, you know, because I think it's so much a part of us, you know, the movies and cinema and everything, and that the fact that so many people are having the collective experience of watching the show and remembering all of the amazing films, you know, that they grew up on and you know, shaped them, is really, really nice. And then, you know, it's only been out for a day or two, so, you know, I think people will little by little start watching it. But today, you know, we did get an amazing post from Karan Johar, you know, talking about how he binged the show already, and it reminded him, you know, of why he wanted to make films, you know, and that was a thrill for me, you know.
Yeah, he has spoken extensively about his influence in your series. Thank you so much to talking to ABP News, and surely we would like you to debut as a feature filmmaker also. All the best for your future and your journey. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
कैमरामैन रवि पांचाल के साथ रवि जैन, एबीपी न्यूज, मुंबई।